What I'd love for each of you to do is to talk a little bit about the ideas of bringing your concept. And we'll start with you, of course, Amy. We'll talk about what was it that inspired you to pull your finance, what most people think of as sort of an uncreative space, into what is now a creative entrepreneurial endeavor.
Thank you. Thanks. I started ArtSmart about a year ago, but I've been working in galleries for 15 years. Been working with artists, and the thing that kept coming up for me with artists was that not that they didn't have good business sense, they just didn't consider it to be very interesting or important. And my whole kind of mantra was like, well, how do you keep making art if you can't figure out a way to support yourself, pay the rent, hire people to help you? So to me, it was kind of a mystery that it wasn't more important to artists. So my whole goal with ArtSmart was to help them get organized and help them realize that by tracking expenses, by hiring people to help you, you actually are going to make money. You're going to make more money. You're going to be able to sustain yourself as an artist. And that's ultimately the goal, is to keep making art. But the business also has to be part of the equation. It has to be part of the conversation. And everything that I was kind of coming up against and the people that I was meeting, they just didn't think that it was that important. So now I've been working with Caitlin for many years, on and off, and we wanted to have a talk basically with her as the artist, kind of asking me, the business guru, about ways that can help her keep making art and sustain a lifetime of art making, and how that can actually, like, in the real world, like, how can it actually work and keep going.
We over the years, we've been, she's been my go-to person, like, oh no, this is happening, what do I do? And she's like, well, did you do this? And I'm like, oh no, I didn't. And most artists have this sort of old mentality of, I'm going to be in my studio and create this work, and nothing else matters. And then often things will fall apart if a piece gets broken or lost, or any number of issues that happen on sort of the business side. And as time has gone on, artists have become more of a small business, and to be sustainable, we speak a lot about sustaining, and the idea of sustainability is not just environmental, but it's sort of the ecology of your own studio, and having that long-term idea and plan for the studio that's outside of, like, the intimate art making. So you can integrate the two. And so that's when these conversations really started happening. And I realized, well, not only do I need to learn about how to keep going as an artist and support my art practice for the future, but also to incorporate, image tracking, consignment forms, all these other elements that galleries and museums are asking for. Because I don't want to not do projects. I mean, my projects have a tendency to be a little bit ephemeral anyways, because I do a lot of wall drawings, and that's tricky. I think a lot of artists are also working within the social realm. So how do you deal with all those alternative art-making processes, but also keep it easy for, like, a museum to work with? Because a museum is business also, and galleries are businesses also, and you want to work within the larger art community. So how do you do that?
Right, exactly. So the part that I feel like the part that I play in this is kind of breaking things down. I'm a very linear thinker. I'm a very rational thinker. So I'm, like, compartmentalized. And so when I work with an artist and we start kind of looking at their practice and their studio, like, how do they make money? Are they a sculptor? Are they a performance artist? Are they doing installations? And if it's a highly conceptual artist, they may be curatorially loved. They may be getting a lot of press, but they're not generating any sales. It's really hard if they have a gallery. It's really hard for the gallery to sell the work. So they're struggling with cash flow. So a lot of times I'll go in, like, Caitlin, you are making wall drawings. Like, no one's going to buy a wall drawing because they would have to buy the whole wall. So it's like, how do you not just, you know, and there are a lot of different ways to do this. Is there a photographic documentation, like that's something that could be sold? Or is it like Saul LeWitt, you know, his are instructions and you buy the set of instructions? Or is it actually, do you cut the wall and somebody does actually buy the whole wall? Or is it not even something that has anything to do with that particular piece, but there's other work that you make that generates that income? So it's like, you know, you make the big wall drawing, but you have other studies that, you know, are for sale. And that whole idea of like really not taking anything off the table. The concept of,
like you sell out.
Exactly. The whole concept of
yeah.
selling out.
Which is really tricky for artists because they like to live in a little white tower, and I think that in today's art world we need to move beyond this idea of selling out, but building into our practice the idea of evolution, and be able to work towards having your art work in different countries, in different places, in different spaces, in the public, you know, in common areas, all of these alternative arenas, but still be able to earn a living, be able to get paid, be able to support interns or studio manager and work towards that, and use your resources and look at it through. I mean, I've recently been working with ArtSmart, and it's pretty darn easy, to be honest. And it also makes it easier for the people that I work with, because I'll be on an artist residency in the middle of nowhere, maybe, and someone says, "Oh, can you send us an image of this?" And I'm like, before I was just like, where is that image on my computer somewhere in this file, really obscure for publication or something like that. So being able to use the online resources to track and send consignment forms so I can expand my practice is really crucial. And I think artists need to think that way and expand their notion, but also academia can also, like grad schools, can help support artists and dealing with like the business and a different kind of business model for artists and art making.
Yeah, and the idea that this whole concept of selling out, this thing that we've always kind of talked about, which is a really interesting kind of excuse, I think, which ends up being this idea. I work with an artist in LA, and he has connections with the fashion industry and the design world, and sporting goods and things like that, and he kind of turns his back to that and like thinks that it's not legitimate because it's not really part of the art world, and I'm like so excited for him. I'm like, well, this is like a huge opportunity. Like lots of artists don't have these connections. They don't have the ability to have their art put on a skateboard. You know, like it's kind of like looking at what you have, looking at the connections you have and the resources you have, and like I said, everything's on the table. Nothing's taken off the table. It's an opportunity, and somebody out there thinks that that's fine art, and that's cool, and that's great. And he just decided he was going to take his art, and he basically wrapped his car in his art, and I was like, that is amazing. And it was kind of through a process, a year long of working together, of him finally embracing like all of these things that he had access to all along. But he wasn't getting published in Art Forum, he wasn't getting a gallery, he wasn't getting these things that he was like, well, no, but I'm an artist, and I was like, of course you're an artist, but you've got this opportunity to like, work with Nike, like that's cool. Like why is Nike not, something that we're gonna like, say, no, that's not the art world, that's not critical success, I have my MFA and all of that. So I think...
And student loan debt from that MFA?
So part of it is looking at what you have, and I think you had a great opportunity when you were working at the Billboard. You were working at a Billboard company, and...
Yeah, generally artists have that, they call it the side job,
The day job.
The day job, the don't quit your day job. And one of those for me was working with an outdoor media company. And so what I was doing was working with images in Times Square and billboards and photoshopping in these expansive ads in this ad campaign for them. And I thought to myself, I was like, you know what? I've been working with all this topiary and sort of masking the built world with gardens and constructed gardens instead of constructed urban areas. So I said, well, what if I could get them to sponsor a billboard and I would just put a big topiary garden out there? And they went for it. They were like, this is awesome. And so they sponsored the whole thing. And it was just a couple of billboards with topiary gardens on them. It's like advertising for the environment. And it really showed me that there's a lot of resources out there that I wasn't tapping into. I mean, there's a great online...
Did you consider that selling out?
No, I was so glad someone paid for something. And they gave me a paycheck on top of it. So, no, that's a really good topic, because I was thinking about, I don't think it's selling out, I think it's about integration. And being able to get your work towards a wider public, and this idea that art is exclusive. I mean, one of the speakers earlier was talking about, like, I couldn't make art. And that really made me sad. I was like, well, it's not about that, and that just shows how enclosed a certain amount of the art world is. But there's so many different areas in which your work can expand to wider audiences, either online or through magazines or just through what you wear or the public projects that you do.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, and also it goes the other way too. It's, that these brands and industries, they want to be legitimized through the art world. So, you see like, Murakami making handbags and, things like that. So there is this, fashion wants to be art, and
art wants to
be fashion, and there is this like interplay of industries, and yeah, I think tapping into those resources is it's a creative way of thinking, and artists are creative thinkers. They think way, way, way outside the box, and I think embracing that is only going to help their bottom line, ultimately. And getting back to the bottom line, the other side of an artist studio and really like bringing in the income is stopping of the bleeding. When you're spending too much in the studio and you're not tracking things. I have a couple of artists that I work with, and they do a lot of fabrication. So they're paying thousands and thousands of dollars to make their sculptures, but they don't keep track of it. So they can't get reimbursed by their galleries for their production. Same with framing, same with pedestals.
Are we somehow standardizing art by making finance and business so important?
I can talk for hours about that. No, just kidding.
Go for it.
And maybe this is a naive viewpoint, but I think of art as it is our ultimate expression, and it's unique, and it's new, and I don't think it's even possible for something like money to standardize it or to curtail it. Money is a tool, and it's brilliant, and it can really, really help a lot of artists, and it could really help a lot of creative thinkers. But it is good to, like I was saying, budgets are good. Don't be afraid of budgets, because it's good to have structure. It's good to have limits too. It's good to have some kind of stop sign that says, you can't go past here. You have $10,000 to make this, and that's all you have, and that's a limit. And it's like, how do I make something for this amount of money? It's another way to be creative and to problem solve. And I think artists are the best problem solvers. And money is just it's a tool, and it's also it's finite. And I think that that combination of the infinite creativity, problem solving, and then this finite thing called money they have to be part of the same conversation, you know?
Yeah, that conversation of art and capital can be a really scary one. And everyone always seems to think, oh, well, that comes with like branding and standardization. And I think it takes a lot for artists to have their work standardized in that way, because every piece, it really does contain a little bit of that artist, whether or not they're going to talk about it in that way or not, but you're putting your part of yourself out there, and it's kind of hard to standardize that, even if it comes in the realm of money. I think what the larger question would be is, when are artists going to have the confidence to be like, this my art is worth it, this is what it is about, and this is how I'm going to deal with money, and I'm going to deal with money as a tool. When Amy mentioned that a while ago, I was like, I just sat there and I was like, money as a tool, as part of my art practice. Oh, right, that was the missing link. So I really think about it now as just like, okay, I need a hammer. I need to use money as a tool to make things happen. So standardizing art through capital is a larger conversation.
Another question.
I just wanted to ask, it's my perception that people like Jeff Koons, for instance, do actually do a lot of standardizing. I mean, he has his own foundry. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, people that show in 20 galleries all over the world aren't painting all those paintings themselves. So could you?
Yeah.
Talk about, the question I think was, there is an opportunity to standardize what you do best, standardize
Well, define what you
your
mean by
brand.
standardize. If you're talking about the making process.
The making process. Yeah, and even like the creative voice that emerges from all the work that goes into becoming an artist.
Okay, well, I'll just address this question in particular, which is that fabrication, and Jeff Koons is the ultimate fabricator, currently living fabricator. One of my clients is the fabrication company that makes all of his pieces. And personally, I think Jeff Koons is a genius. I love the work. I think it's awesome, and it's just a conversation that Andy Warhol, started, and Koons is continuing in that vein. And it's absolutely, what I think is important is that the fact that he has the ability to standardize. He chooses to standardize. That is his art.
It's an aesthetic choice.
Yeah, is the standardization.
He consciously makes that choice.
Exactly, and that is the art. Just like it was for Warhol and Duchamp before him, it was like this idea of standardization, making the molds, is part of his the art making, and he is a very savvy business person, and he absolutely knows how much everything costs, and prices out things. And I mean, he's an incredible kind of role model, I think.
But it doesn't make it not authentic.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, if you want to have the conversation about authenticity, that's a bit different than standardizing. And it also goes back to, like, you need help to make stuff. You can't make everything. If you have a large vision of making a massive amount of pieces and you choose to make that under certain standards, that is your artistic choice to make. But it's hard to be in many places at the same time and make everything. And you don't always have all of that making knowledge. So you seek help. In any other career line, you seek help to get what you need to get done and find that knowledge.
And he actually does have a lot to do with the process, which I thought was really interesting. He doesn't just like farm it out. He actually goes and picks out the eye color of the cat in the sock. The giant cat that you see. He's actually picking between that blue and that blue. And it's amazing to me because I'm like, oh, well, does it really matter? It's like blue. And he finds the gradation of the right blue for the cat's eye, that you're not even going to be able to see because it's like, 30 feet in the air. But so I thought that was really interesting. Like his gesture, his expression is these kind of seemingly arbitrary choices, which I thought was really interesting.
So we're out of time, so I'm going to wrap it up with one final quick question, which is, what's the resource that you would point people to? If you could mention two really quick ones, and they can be websites or a person that can really help make this happen.
Well, one resource that I love is NYFA, the New York Foundation for the Arts. They have a great archive of grants and artist residencies. But one foundation that has supported me and that supports a lot of emerging artists is the Paula Krasner Foundation. The Paula Krasner Foundation.
I just heard about this new one, and I'm really kind of interested in learning more about it. It's called ArtFlock, and it's a way for people to see all of the resources for artists at a glance in like a calendar form. So if there's a talk or a workshop or something like that for artists, and it basically culls all of this information from NYFA, from the Brooklyn Arts Council, from LMCC, and
which are
I think
great city supporters.
Yeah, and
for
Q
artists.
Arts, I think, basically got a grant to start this thing called ArtFlock. So that's one that I would definitely check out as like a
Absolutely.
great resource for.
Guys, give these women an amazing round of applause. I mean, they're fantastic. Amy,